This video is your guide to find the perfect coffee bottle or travel mug for your lifestyle and preferences. First section is a rapid fire review of each bottle, including how it works and what makes it unique. Second, we'll dive even deeper and rank each bottle according to 12 different criteria. And third, we'll condense it all into a free spreadsheet that lets you rank each criteria according to your priorities to get your own personalized list of recommended bottles. You guys left a lot of helpful comments on the last video like this, and that helped me correct some wrong info and make this video you're watching now even better. So thanks to everyone who reached out. Here are the timestamps, which will also be in the description. Feel free to skip ahead to whichever sections are most important to you, or sit back, grab some popcorn, and let's find your perfect morning companion. This is Bottle Pro, and I promote health through hydration by helping you find the best bottles and by learning about hydration in general. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Let's start with the rapid fire review of each bottle. Contigo's Byron bottle is not tapered, and it's a lever action lid that you can open with one hand by pulling up on the back part here, which drops the seal down to let your drink through the sip opening. Bellows Carter Move bottle is not tapered, and it's what I call a standard lid, meaning you have to screw the whole thing on and off to take a sip. This bottle has stainless steel under the lid, and the inside of the bottle has a ceramic coating. It comes with a splash guard that snaps into place, and the outside rim is curved to line up with your lips. Frank Green's travel mug is not tapered, and it has a button on top that you press to open and close the sip opening with just one hand. And like Fellow, Frank Green has a ceramic coating on the inside. Healthy Human's Cruiser tumbler is tapered, and it has a simple plastic lid that's a press fit, not threaded. It doesn't have a way to close the opening, but it's the only option on this list that comes with a stainless steel straw. Hydro Flask's bottle with a flex sip lid is not tapered and has a twist to open lid. It's also the only bottle in this video that has a built-in handle. Owala's Smooth Sip tumbler has a tapered base and a slider sip lid. To use it, you press down on the back side of this slider, then you push it towards the back of the bottle. The sip opening is also pretty unique because it's designed around your mouth. Simple Modern's tumbler has a tapered base and one button on top that opens and closes it, similar to Frank Green, but the button is much larger and you can also sip from any side. And it also has a ceramic coating on the inside as well. Stanley's Aerolite Transit bottle is not tapered, and it has a lever action lid you can open by pressing or pulling up on the front, which then drops down the seal to let your drink through. To keep that lever out of your face, you can push it all the way back 180 degrees until it clicks back into the lid. Weto's tumbler has a tapered base and a slider lid that's a press fit, not threaded. To open or close it, you simply move the slider back and forth. And I primarily included this tumbler because it's a very inexpensive but high selling tumbler on the US Amazon marketplace, so that makes it an interesting comparison against the next bottle, YETI's Mag Slider tumbler, which also has a tapered base and a slider, and it's a press fit lid, not threaded. So just like Weto, you simply move that slider back and forth to open or close it, but the main difference is that it's attached with magnets, not plastic connections. YETI is the only brand in this video with two bottles, and the other one is their 18-ounce bottle with a hot shot lid. The bottle is not tapered, and to use the lid, you twist this inner dial to let your drink through, then you can sip from any side. And last but not least, we have Zoji Rushi. The bottle is not tapered, and you press the button on the lid to flip open the spring-loaded cover to reveal the spout. Then you can push that cover all the way back until it locks into place to keep it out of your face. It's the only bottle on this video with a spring-loaded cover like this, and you can lock or unlock it with this toggle. Yes, there are a ton of other brands and bottles out there. You guys have mentioned ones like Coleman and Tiger and other ones that I have on the list to get, but I got the ones I could afford for now on a small YouTuber budget, and that covers a good range of options and styles. If you have a favorite that's not shown here, let me know in the comments, because a lot of times that's how I learn about cool bottles to try next. Now that you know the basics behind each bottle, let's see how far this rabbit hole goes by ranking each one according to 12 different criteria. And let's start with an easy one: which bottles are leak-free? The good news is that most bottles on this list are leak-free. The biggest exception is Healthy Human, which has a lid that you can't close. Also, Frank Green and YETI's Mag Slider are leak-resistant but not leak-free, so be careful because they may drip. Weto started off passing the leak test, but it started leaking after the drop test that you'll see in a bit. Healthy Human, Mag Slider, and Weto are the only three options with press fit lids instead of threaded, which means it's possible the entire lid may pop off if you drop your bottle. So if having a truly leak-free bottle is a priority for you, the good news is you have 8 good options. Now let's look at hot insulation. I boiled water until it was screaming in this kettle. Then I filled a bottle to the top and put it in my fridge to have a consistent outside temperature. After 3 hours, I took the bottle out and measured the temperature drop. The worst result was from Healthy Human, which was expected because the lid has this opening you can't close. Next are Contigo, Owala, Frank Green, Simple Modern, Weto, and YETI's Mag Slider. Most heat transfers through the lid, so it's not a coincidence that the 5 bottles with the widest mouth openings ranked on the bottom end of the list. Then you have a pretty big jump to Hydro Flask's Flex Sip and Stanley's Aerolite, followed by YETI's Hot Shot. The 2 best results by far were from Fellow and Zoji Rushi. Fellow has a lid that looks like it has a thicker section for insulation, and it has the type of seal that extends down into the neck of the bottle that is so often featured in bottles with great insulation. Zoji Rushi, on the other hand, has the advantage of being the narrowest mouth bottle in this video, but it also has a seal that extends down the neck. It was honestly a much wider range of results than I expected, and it just goes to show that while a lot of these bottles can seem similar at first based on marketing, small differences in things like mouth diameter, lid design, and seal placement can have huge impacts on insulation, and it's not something you'd necessarily notice unless you tested them side by side. Now for those cold brew drinkers out there, let's look at cold insulation. I took this YETI cooler full of ice water and filled up each bottle using the drain as a strainer. That way, each of the bottles started with water that was pretty much the same temperature, and we don't have to worry about variables like the amount of ice, which is hard to control. I measured the temperature of the water in the bottles at the beginning, waited 24 hours, then measured how much the temperature had risen in each of them and recorded the difference. At the bottom are Weto and Contigo, which were the worst by a pretty decent margin. Next were Simple Modern, Healthy Human, Frank Green, YETI's Mag Slider, and Hydro Flask, which all came right around 30 or 31 degrees temperature rise. Then you have a pretty decent jump up to Owala and YETI's Hot Shot. Owala was a bit surprising because it did much worse on the hot water test. Stanley's Aerolite and Fellow came in around the same in the low 20s, but the best bottle by far for the cold water test was Zoji Rushi, with just 15 degrees temperature rise. So long story short, if you want the best insulation, Zoji Rushi is your best choice by a significant margin, followed by Fellow, Stanley, or YETI's Hot Shot. But beyond those 4, they really start to run together and aren't as impressive, though honestly, if you typically finish your drink within an hour or 2, any of these will be fine. Now let's look at how durable each bottle is. First, I did a drop test by filling each bottle up, lining them on my tailgate, then pushing them off and noting the damage. I also did scratch tests by making 4 light passes on 100 grit sandpaper and noted how it affected the coating. Then I looked at all of the lids for weak points because in most cases that ends up being the primary wear or break point. And finally, I looked at whether the bottle comes with a silicone boot or has a built-in grip pad. And after considering all of those factors, here are the rankings. At the bottom is Frank Green. The bottle has a very thin metal rim, but more importantly, the lid consists of a lot of small plastic parts, and some of them are very thin with very tiny threads. It's not easy or intuitive to take apart and put back together compared to the other bottles, which probably explains why their YouTube instructional video has over 150,000 views in just 1 year. And even after putting it back together correctly, the button didn't work reliably all the time, and it seemed to really depend on how I pressed the button, like if I mainly pressed on one side of the button, in the middle, or if I used a couple fingers to spread it out. And because the parts are so small, you could easily lose one of them, like if you drop it down the drain. So if durability and having a bottle that works great for many years to come is your top priority, there are some legitimate reasons to avoid this bottle. Weto was originally ranked higher because it's pretty simple, but then 2 things happened. It started leaking after the drop test, and some plastic chipped off when I was testing to see if you could remove the slider. If it was just the durability of the lid itself, this would be in the lowest tier, but the durable tumbler and powder coat bump it to C tier. With Zoji Rushi, the paint scratches off really easily, and the spout cover rotates on a hinge with a tiny spring. The hinge already has a little wobble to it, and I'm worried this could be an easy break point in the future if you drop the bottle when the cover is open. Next, we have Contigo and Owala. Contigo's paint scratched off easily, though it is worth noting that it has a stainless steel bottom rim where scratches are most likely to occur. Owala's lid has a few parts, including this thumb rest and the actual slider. To take it apart, you pull up on the back of the thumb rest. It might feel like you're breaking it, but it does come off fine. But you'll notice it has these small plastic connections, and they just don't give me the warm and fuzzies for a product that would last 20 years. But I'm wondering, am I worrying about a non-issue like I was with Camelback's hinge in the previous video? So if you have a lot of experience with using and cleaning this Owala tumbler, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Next, we have these 4 bottles that are all pretty durable and reliable. If it wasn't for the scratch test, Healthy Human would have been S tier because it doesn't have any moving parts, so there's hardly anything that can break. So I think they have some other finishes with a more durable coating than this one. Hydro Flask's Flex Sip lid has a lot of parts to it, but they're all pretty beefy and durable. Simple Modern's 1-button lid worked reliably after a lot of repeat testing, and it also has a grip pad on the bottom to prevent scratches. And Stanley's Aerolite Transit has a fairly complex lid, but it's all sturdy plastic parts without any obvious weak points. The top of the rankings are Fellow and YETI. Fellow's bottle is really sturdy, and the simple standard lid just doesn't have any moving parts, springs, or hinges that can break. It also has more rounded edges on the top and bottom, which can help prevent dents compared to more angular sides like Zoji Rushi. And for YETI, both their Mag Slider tumbler and their 18-ounce bottle with a hot shot lid are designed without any obvious weak points. Between the powder coating and the stainless steel bottom rim, they both prevent scratches pretty well, and the steel in general seems to be more dent resistant than a lot of other bottles on the market. For Mag Slider specifically, it uses magnets to attach the slider instead of plastic parts, so that's one fewer thing that can break. And for the hot shot lid, it's pretty beefy and simple with just 2 large parts. So if your top priority is getting the most durable option, consider getting Fellow's mug or one of these 2 Yetis. And even better, look for one in a traditional stainless steel finish because it won't show scratches nearly as much. Now, let's look at which bottles are easiest to clean, and we'll consider whether it's dishwasher safe, how easy it is to deep clean every surface, where the rim seal is located, and how many brushes you typically need to clean it. And for most of these bottles, I highly recommend picking up a brush kit like this one and a pack of cleaning tablets like Bottle Bright or denture tablets to save some money, because these accessories make cleaning nearly any water bottle a lot easier. Also, check out this other video that has recommended cleaning schedules. At the bottom of the ranking are Frank Green, Simple Modern, and Weto Weto. Frank Green's bottle is recommended hand wash only, though the lid is dishwasher safe, so that helps. But the main problem is with deep cleaning because the lid is so difficult to disassemble and put back together. There are so many small parts to clean. Simple Modern's Voyager, on the other hand, has the problem that you can't take apart the lid, or at least you're not supposed to. It is dishwasher safe, but the lid is massive and has a lot of nooks and crannies where bacteria or mold could grow, especially if you don't fully dry it before putting it in storage. That also applies to Weto Weto, which at first glance looks like it should be really easy to clean because it's so simple and dishwasher safe. But the plastic slider is once again the problem. It's not designed to be removed, and if you force it, then you can chip the plastic like I found out the hard way. But the thing is, I had moisture visibly building up under the slider, which would no doubt lead to more germs and bacteria over time, so not being able to easily clean under that slider without damaging the lid is not great. Next are Contigo, Stanley, and Hydro Flask. Contigo is dishwasher safe and has a simple rocker lid, but I don't think you're able to remove the rocker. It's easier to clean around and not as bulky as Simple Modern, but again, not being able to fully take it apart hurts its ranking. For Hydro Flask, it's pretty easy to disassemble and put back together when you've done it a few times, though you'll probably find yourself looking at the instructions or one of our videos first. But the main problem is the rim seal because it's up above the threads and is really hard to remove. Stanley has this lever action lid, and you can pop the lever out easily by pulling it forward then twisting it, and that drops this plastic part with the seal for the sip opening, which helps a lot with cleaning. The problem is that I'm not sure you're meant to remove that drop down part, or at least I tried pretty hard, but I felt like I was going to break it. The gasket itself is easy to pull off, but it's really tricky to put back on because of the tight spacing. In tier B are Fellow and Zoji Rushi. Zoji Rushi is surprisingly simple to clean every single surface, even though it's a fairly complex lid, including how you can even remove the spout. And Fellow is just really simple and there's not much to it. But both of them are ranked here because they're not dishwasher safe, and for hand washing with your deep cleaning, you're gonna need several brushes. In tier A are Healthy Human, Owala, and YETI's Hot Shot, which all really need just one brush each. Healthy Human is as simple as you can get, and it comes with a straw brush. And the only reason it's not in the top tier is because it's not dishwasher safe. Owala is hand wash recommended, but it's designed so you can pretty easily disassemble everything to clean all surfaces. But you may want a small brush to clean some tight spaces and the sip opening. And Yeti's Hotshot is a simple two-piece design, so it's not complicated. It's like Hydro Flask in that you twist the dial counterclockwise until it pops out. This does require some finger strength because of how tightly the two pieces fit together and how the dial is recessed below the rim, so keep that in mind if you're buying for someone who has arthritis or a weaker grip. And alone in S tier is Yeti's Mag Slider. It's a wide mouth, so you don't need a bottle brush. The rim seal is on the outside, so it's easy to take off and put back on, and the magnetic slider is easy to remove and won't break or trap moisture like Owala's design. And to top it all off, it's dishwasher safe. Most people don't even need a brush kit to deep clean this one, so if having the easiest bottle to keep clean is the main factor for you, it's hard to go wrong with Yeti's Mag Slider. But really, any of the ones in the top 3 tiers are pretty easy to clean completely if you have the right brushes and commit to a cleaning schedule. Now let's look at which bottles are easiest to use each day by considering how you open it, if you can easily do that with one hand, if you can sip from any side, and how heavy and bulky it is. At the bottom is Yeti's 18-ounce bottle with the Hotshot lid. This thing is massive and is alone at the bottom because it's so big and heavy compared to the other options. You'll need both hands to open it, and twisting the dial on top isn't that hard, but it might be more difficult for people with weaker grips. The good news is that this is one of the few bottles that lets you sip from any side, but that's not enough to break it out of D tier. Next are Hydro Flask and Owala. Hydro Flask has a bottle that's not nearly as big as Yeti's, but it's still bulky and heavy compared to most of the other options, and you'll need both hands to open it. Owala's tumbler sounds simple to use at first because it's ergonomic and you just press on the back side of the thumb rest, then slide it backwards. But the slider fits pretty snugly and the thumb rest doesn't have that great of a surface to push against, so it's easy for your thumb to slip off. Next are 2 bottles that are kind of in the middle. They're not exceptionally easy or difficult to use. Fellows bottle has a standard lid that you screw all the way on and off, and it's mainly ranked here because you need both hands to open it, and it's a little heavy for a 16-ounce. Frank Green has one convenient button, but it's ranked here because that button didn't always work reliably. In A tier are Contigo, Stanley, and Owala. Contigo's lever action lid is simple and straightforward to use with one hand, but it's fairly stiff and hard to open from different angles. Owala's lid is simple, but the slider doesn't move quite as freely as Yeti's Mag Slider, so it's 1 tier lower. Stanley's Aerolite is pretty easy to use and it's very lightweight. The lever also snaps really securely into place, which in some ways is good to prevent leaks, but be careful because it might actually pinch you. And in the top tier are these 4 bottles. Healthy Human is super simple without any moving parts. Simple Modern's big button is really convenient and worked reliably after a lot of testing, and you can also sip from any side. Yeti's Mag Slider is relatively heavy, but the fact that the slider moves so easily compared to the other lids like Owala and Owala puts this one in the top tier, and Zojirushi is the lightest and narrowest option, making it a great choice for people with smaller hands. The spring-loaded cover is also convenient and easy to use. You can also push the cover all the way back until it locks into place to keep it out of your face. So if you're looking for the easiest bottle to use every day, any of these 4 would be good options. Now let's look at the handles. I thought about grouping this in with the easy to use section, but I kept it separate since handles are so important to many people, and they're actually a make or break feature when buying a bottle. But for this particular batch of bottles, there's really not that much to talk about. Most are in the bottom tier because they don't have a handle at all. Contigo bumped up 1 level because of that textured grip on the outside, but only Hydro Flask comes with a true handle. It's only at A tier because it's not a full hand grip, but overall, handles really start to get more significant when you're dealing with larger bottles like a 32 or 40 ounce. They're not going to be as common on smaller bottles like these. Now let's look at affordability. Each one is ranked on the list price, but the bottle volume also plays a big role since bigger bottles cost more than smaller ones of the same style. So this chart includes notations for the volume for quick reference. The most expensive bottle is Frank Green, coming in at $36.95. The others in the bottom tier are right at $35, including Fellow, Simple Modern, and Yeti's Mag Slider. The next tier includes Zojirushi, Stanley, Hydro Flask, and Yeti's 16-ounce bottle bottle with a commuter lid, which is different from the one that I have, but I'll tell you why I mentioned it in a few seconds. In the middle are Healthy Human and Owala. A tier has Contigo, which is where we get below $20. The cheapest option is YETI, which is an alternative to Yeti's Mag Slider that ranks really well on Amazon. Keep an eye out for price breaks because most of these brands run sales all the time, and prices can also be higher if something is low on inventory, which leads into something about Yeti. Their listing for the 18-ounce bottle with the hot shot lid that you've seen in this video is a little weird right now. When you go to Yeti's coffee page on their Amazon storefront, this listing is at the bottom and most of the colors are really expensive. You even have to click this button to see the offers because Amazon flagged them as higher than normal. But higher up on the coffee page is a newer listing for a 16-ounce bottle with tapered sides and the commuter lid. This lid looks exactly the same as the hot shot one, so I think Yeti is in the middle of changing their coffee offering to a tapered bottle and rebranding the lid. Either way, both are linked in the description if you'd like to shop around. Now let's look at which bottles are car friendly, including does it fit in standard cup holders, can you easily open and close it with one hand, and is everything on the lid connected or do you have to juggle different pieces that you could potentially drop, making it dirty or worst case causing a distraction. And we'll also consider a few factors relating to line of sight, including what is the max diameter of the bottle and does that get into your view, which is more a problem with wide tumblers. But we'll also consider how much you have to tilt your head back by looking at how quickly the bottle's lid hits your nose, and also doing a horizontal pour test, then measuring the amount of water that was held back. With all of these considerations in mind, here are the rankings. At the bottom is Fellows Carter Move, mainly because it has a standard lid. That means you have to use both hands to take it off, and it's one more part to juggle when driving. It held back a decent amount of water on the horizontal pour test, and while it has a splash guard, your drink can still come out a lot faster than the other bottles, so it's easier to spill if you're not careful or if you hit a bump in the road. It should fit in most cup holders, but it is a little wider than some of these other options and is not tapered, so you may want to measure your cup holder first. Fellow is the only one I'd say is really not great for driving, so now we'll skip to Hydro Flask, Yeti's Hot Shot, and Zojirushi. Hydro Flask and Yeti's Hot Shot both require two hands to open and close, and they also didn't do that great on the horizontal pour test. The 18-ounce Yeti has the widest bottom diameter, so definitely check your cup holder's dimensions before buying that one. But if you like that Yeti lid style and need a cup holder friendly option, check out their newer 16-ounce tapered bottle with the rebranded commuter lid. Zojirushi has a small diameter and easy one-handed design, but the two things holding it back are related to line of sight. The large spout cover can block your view even when it's pushed all the way back, and the really bad results from the horizontal pour test mean you'll need to tilt the bottle up above horizontal to get to almost half of your drink. Moving up to A tier, we have a lot of good options. Contigo's only real drawback is that it hits your nose at a lower angle, so you'll have to tilt your head back more. Drink Green has the same problem, but it also held back more water on the horizontal pour test. The one button to open and close is really convenient when driving though, at least when it works. Healthy Human, Owala, YETI, and Yeti's Mag Slider are all good for the most part, but they just have the drawback that they're wide tumblers, so the sheer diameter on top can block your view more. And Stanley's Aerolite is good for the most part, but it held back a lot of water on the horizontal pour test. And remember, you can flip that lever all the way back 180 degrees until it snaps into the lid. I actually didn't realize it did that at first and originally had this bottle ranked lower. And alone in S tier is Simple Modern's Voyager. It has one big button to open and close that worked reliably. You can sip from any angle. It's tapered. It also wasn't that bad on the horizontal pour test, and it's a smaller diameter on top than the other tumblers in this video, so it won't block your view as much. You can also include Healthy Human in the top tier too if you plan to use it with a stainless steel straw, since that won't block your view either. But honestly, all of these with the exception of Fellow are pretty good for driving, so it's hard to go wrong on this criteria with this particular batch of bottles. Now let's look at popularity, which is important if you want something recognizable or to give as a gift. I looked at the overall brand since it's hard to break it down by individual bottles, and I focused on their Instagram and TikTok stats, including overall followers and average views over the last 10 videos. In the past, I've also considered Google Trends and Amazon sales, but I didn't factor those in as much this time. Google Trends can be tricky because the search terms aren't always reliable comparisons, and Amazon sales are really hard to know for sure, and different different brands group their bottle listings differently, so it can be hard to compare them directly. So I stuck to social media because for better or worse, it's a definitive metric. At the bottom is Owala because I couldn't even find social media accounts. Next are Contigo, Zojirushi, and Healthy Human. These are all well-known and respected brands, but when you look at them on TikTok and Instagram, they're really not that impressive. B tier includes Fellow, Frank Green, and Simple Modern, which is when we start to have followers in the hundreds of thousands and more consistently higher views. A tier is Hydro Flask, which has certainly lost some of its prestige since the summer of Visco, but is still very relevant and is getting a boost more recently from their new micro bottle. And in S tier, there are really 3 brands at the top of the US market right now. YETI has the most Instagram followers, Stanley has the most TikTok followers, and they have a ridiculously high 10 video average view count on Instagram because of their messy collaboration. Owala continues to gain traction and has the highest average view count on TikTok. YETIs are generally the best for men, Stanley's trend more towards moms and women, and Owala's are more relevant with younger consumers. So to be clear, these are clearly stereotypes, so take it with a grain of salt. Now let's look at health and which are the safest bottles to drink from, which I added to this format after seeing so many of your comments from the previous video, so big thanks again to those of you who reached out. We'll look at how well the lid keeps the mouth contact area clean and free of germs. Then we'll also consider whether the bottle is completely lead-free. This is a topic that made big headlines a few years ago with Stanley, and I reached out to each manufacturer to confirm if the bottles have lead. Now to be clear, the lead we're talking about is part of the plug on the bottom that seals in the vacuum, and it's always covered up by either the coating, a cap, or some combination of the two. There's very little chance you'll realistically have a safety concern unless your bottle is extremely damaged. And at that point, it's probably time for a new bottle anyways. But I totally understand that many people would just feel better knowing that no lead is used at all, but there is a slight positive impact if the seal is lead-free. And last, we'll consider leaching. Leaching is what happens when chemicals, metals, or toxins seep from one thing to another. In this case, from your bottle into your drink or your mouth. It's a bigger concern with hot and acidic drinks, which both apply to coffee and tea. Plastic is the main example because of BPAs, which were found to affect hormone levels. While every plastic bottle today is BPA-free, there are still legitimate concerns about the chemicals used as replacements, like BPS and BPF, and whether they're just as bad or potentially worse. For that reason, any plastic that touches your drink or lips with normal use will count as a negative. As far as I've read, stainless steel is safe and doesn't leach, so that's counted as a positive. But what about ceramic coated bottles? For the most part, they seem to be safe, but there are some concerns over what's in that coating, which is not really true ceramic and is sometimes classified as quasi-ceramic. One of those ingredients is often titanium dioxide. This is a common whitener that's added to food and many products, and that includes many ceramic coatings like these. But the thing is, it was actually banned as a food additive in the EU in 2022 because of potential health issues. And from what I could gather, they did that in an abundance of caution after a report couldn't prove that titanium dioxide was harmful, but it also couldn't prove it was safe. I think the main risk is if you physically damage or scratch that coating, which could free up some titanium dioxide nanoparticles, so you should be safe with regular use with a bottle that's in good condition. But given the uncertainty, I'm counting those ceramic coatings as a neutral. That way they don't negatively impact the bottle rankings, but at least you're aware of it. With all of that in mind, here are the rankings. I'm reserving the bottom tier for all plastic bottles, so we'll start one higher where we find Contigo, Frank Green, Simple Modern, YETI's Mag Slider, and YETI's Hot Shot. All of these bottles have plastic both on the bottom of the lid and at the drinking surface. And the drinking surface is exposed and can get dirty very easily. Also, none of them have lead-free seals, though I'm actually not 100% sure about Frank Green. I'm assuming they do because of their customer service responses that you'll see more about in the next section. Frank Green and Simple Modern have ceramic coatings, but as mentioned before, that did not impact the rankings. Moving up one tier are Hydro Flask, Owala, Stanley, and Owala. The main difference between the previous tier and this one is that all of these bottles have lead-free seals. I was a little surprised to hear that Stanley's Aerolite Transit bottle does in fact have a lead-free seal after all the noise about their quenchers. And one thing to note is that Stanley is a little bit better to keep that drinking surface clean because the lever offers a little protection. Next are Healthy Human and Zojirushi. Each of these have lead-free seals, and while Zojirushi has a plastic spout, the good thing is it has a lid cover that keeps the drinking surface clean. Healthy Human also has a plastic lid. They're ranked here because they give you a stainless steel straw, so that's a good option for cold brew. And alone at the top is Fellow. It avoids plastic contact with your drink because there's stainless steel under the lid, and there's also stainless steel around the rim on the drinking surface. And last, the drinking surface is covered by the lid, so it's easier to keep it clean even if you throw it in your bag. Yes, it has a ceramic coating and a lead-based seal, but as I mentioned before, I treated those factors as neutral. If you're looking for the healthiest bottle to drink your coffee or tea from, it can be a little difficult to really know, but based on everything I've read, Fellow is a really safe choice, or you can use Healthy Human with a stainless steel straw. I'm putting links to some of these articles about things like the ceramic coating, the lead seal, and BPA replacements, so you can look into it all more if you'd like. And the downloadable spreadsheet also lays out all of these considerations, including what helped or hurt the rankings, so check that out if you'd like to dig into it even more. Now we're at the last criteria, which is another new one that wasn't in the previous video, customer support. Reaching out to most of these companies anyways to ask whether there was lead in their seal, so I ended up contacting all of them with the same question, even if I already knew the answer. Noted how long it took to receive an answer, if it came from a human or an automated response, and if they actually answered the question. If you have experience with customer support from any of these companies, it'd be great if you could comment below with your experience, but based on the measurable metrics like response time and getting a clear answer, here are the rankings. Honestly, most were really good and got back within one business day with a definitive answer from an actual human. Down one tier are Owala and Flask. Owala had an auto response that answered the question quickly, but they dropped one tier because it was automated without a follow-up from a human. So it might take a little more effort to get answers for questions that aren't as straightforward. I've interacted with Flask the most in the past, and they've always been good to work with, but I'm sticking to this apples to apples comparison for these rankings, and the fact is Flask took a little longer to respond, but it was still pretty quick. The same can't be said for Stanley. They sent an automated ticket confirmation right away, but the next response I got was a full 16 days later. Thankfully, it was from a human who answered the question clearly, though that's still a really long response time. But at the bottom was Frank Green. The few good things they had were that they had an automated response right away with suggested articles, and if those didn't answer your question, you could reply and get an answer back from a human, and I did that and they responded within a day and a half. The problem was that I never got a clear answer. The suggested articles from that automated response didn't mention anything about lead, and the follow-up response from a human just said the bottles are independently tested and lead is not detected. But that's not the same as saying lead is or is not included in the solder. Because I was trying to answer the lead question for the health section of this video, I dove even further into this by searching online, and I couldn't find a definitive FAQ or answer from their website. This is the only company I was unable to get a definite answer from, which isn't a good sign for customer service in general. And if I overlooked where Frank Green has posted about this in the past, please let me know and I can make an update in the comments and the description. But overall, when it comes to customer support, the moral of the story is that everybody but Stanley or Frank Green was honestly pretty good, so it's hard to go wrong. Alright, now that my ranting is over, we have one more step to come up with your personalized recommendations. Look in the description for the downloadable Excel spreadsheet that's on my Google Drive. Download it first since you won't have access to make edits to my version because that would change what everybody else would see too. Open up the version you downloaded and look at the first tab and rank the criteria from 1 to 12, with 1 being the least important to you and 12 being the thing you care the most about. Then click on the tab, Your Recommendations, click the Sort button on the total score column and sort from largest to smallest. That will rearrange the list based on which bottles might be the best fit for you. Very basically, all of those charts that you saw earlier were converted into numbers. Then the spreadsheet gives more weight to the criteria you ranked as more important on the first tab and adds everything up to get a total weighted score. So the higher the score, the more likely it's a good fit for you. These other columns summarize helpful details and specs about each bottle, like if it's dishwasher safe or if it's tapered. And to look at the current pricing, click on the hyperlink to the right and you'll see the active listing. If you made it all this way and this information was helpful, I really hope you'll consider using one of those links because I get a small commission and it doesn't cost you anything extra. If you're curious about the inner workings, you can unhide these columns to see the subtotals for each criteria. If you really want to see how far this rabbit hole goes, check out the tabs to the right for each criteria. There you can see all of the factors that were considered and they're color coded for features that had a good, bad, or neutral neutral impact. I'm leaving the spreadsheet open and unlocked. Feel free to change the tier rankings on these subcategory pages. It should all be linked correctly so the total score on the Your Recommendations page will still add up correctly. The only place you should rearrange the rows is on the Your Recommendations tab, and only do that by using the sort function. If you prefer to use all ceramic mugs at home, check out my other company, Moment Mugs. You've seen from this video how I ridiculously overanalyze every single detail, and I put that same type of effort into making a coffee mug that actually makes sense. If you're also in the market for a bigger bottle for everyday hydration, check out this other video, which was the first one where I tried this kind of ranking format. Hope this helps, and happy hydrating.